Marketing is the one function that probably touches arguably more areas of the business than others. Marketers are being asked to do more and more. You have to be a financial expert, you have to be a product expert, you have to convert sales, you have to tell stories, you have to retain customers.
And welcome to a new episode of Digital Coffee Marketing Brew. And I'm your host, Brett Deister. Please subscribe to this podcast and all your favorite podcasting apps. Leave a 5-star review. It really does help with the rankings. Let me know how I am doing. But this week, we're going to be talking about internal marketing and how it's just as important, and you should probably be focusing on it as external marketing. I know this is a big thing because most people kind of ignore it. It's on the back burner because you always want to make your sales. But anyways, I have Charlie with me, and he's the first head of marketing at Onscreen, a measurable outdoor advertising platform. Has been the first marketing hire at 6 organizations, leading marketing and sales at seed stage startups up to $200 million organizations. But welcome to the show, Charlie.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
That's the first question. That's all my guests is, are you a coffee or tea drinker?
I'm an iced coffee drinker. I don't drink hot drinks, but I do drink iced tea occasionally, but more of an iced coffee person.
So are you like iced coffee, cold brew, or does it really not matter? Because they are actually brewed differently.
Yeah, I don't know the full nuance of all of them, but I like both. So usually an iced Americano is what I go with.
Well, I mean, the difference is that just cold brew is just brewed in a room temperature or cold. And so that's why it's called cold brew, because there's no heat involved. And then iced is usually traditional way, and then you just kind of ice it down.
Learned something new. Thanks. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. And I gave a brief summary of your expertise. Can you give our listeners a little bit more about what you do?
So I'm the head of marketing at onscreen.ai. We are a measurable out-of-home or outdoor advertising platform. So we help brands utilize brand marketing in their demand gen execution. I've worked at a number of different companies in different sizes in a range of industries. So yeah, I've been first marketing hire a couple times, and I've really tried to lean into. I've worked on I've been very fortunate to lead sales teams. Even though my background's more in marketing, I've led sales teams a couple times now. So I have a deep appreciation for understanding how hard that role is and how much marketing works directly with sales and customer support. It's not just siloed functions there. Everyone has to work together. And so, yeah, I think that the topic of internal marketing, especially with what I do now, where we're working with sales teams, we're working with support teams, we may be helping with product launches. It's really important for marketers to understand how our work supports and helps other functions. So I've been kind of talking about that or appreciating that for over 20 years now.
Why do you believe that internal marketing is just as important with external marketing for a company's success?
Marketing is the one function that probably touches arguably more areas of the business than others. Marketers are being asked to do more and more. You have to be a financial expert. You have to be a product expert. You have to convert sales. You have to tell stories. You have to retain customers. There's a piece to all of that. And so you have to know a little bit about everything. You have to be able to snorkel in most functions and then deep dive into other areas. And I think depending on the function or the maturity of organizations, everyone has their interpretation or assumption of what marketing is. And especially, everyone has an opinion of what good marketing looks like. And so I think it's important as a marketer to work to really listen and to understand first and foremost what people think marketing is and how that role supports or contributes to what they do. And then you have to utilize that to make sure that they understand how long it takes to do certain executions, how that's going to impact their role, how they can help support marketing. Because it is a team game. It's a team effort, especially when you're working very closely with sales and customer support. But you have to dive into understanding the product. You have to be able to tell that in a different way than maybe an engineer does, or to talk about how a product or a solution, uh, why a CFO cares about it versus maybe a salesperson or a marketer. So you have to be a communicator. That's what marketing is first and foremost. And you have to not only think about your audiences are not just external from your walls or from your company, but you have internal constituents too that you have to help all get on the same page, because it's going to reduce the cost to go out to market. It's going to make it your job easier, and it's going to make them understand what you do day to day and how it helps the company.
Can we say that internal marketing does help employee morale and productivity because of how just checking in with employees a lot of times and making sure that they have what they're needed to be supported is just as important as just making a sale?
Yeah, I think that's a good maybe secondary benefit to being a good storyteller. You're gonna hopefully you're gonna be involved with internal communications alongside HR departments, or operational departments, because there's a lot of ways that marketing can help to extend the story. So, when you launch a big campaign, and for us, that's launching a campaign with a customer that's doing a big out of home campaign. So they might be doing a big brand launch. They might be doing a product announcement. It's a very visual product. What we have, we've got billboards, we have bus wraps, we have all these different executions that we build for someone. It's a fun story. It's exciting to see that go live. It's exciting to see that out in the world. We like to share that internally, but we also have to help the other departments understand how their work contributed to us getting to the end goal. We have to help maybe tell the story of how do they find us. We have to ask those types of questions. Where did they come from? Like, what was their main goal, and how do we contribute to that? Because that's going to help sales think about how they're messaging differently. That's going to help marketing where they spend their dollars, or where they're advertising. So those types of stories are important to think about the whole story, not just what your function does. But yeah, when you talk about morale, I think that's one of those areas where it's like, hey, let's look at this execution we just did. We just did a large campaign for a conference. Let's champion that, and let's call out who contributed to that, because I may not know the day-to-day details of what someone on a planning team does, but I can start to appreciate that more and start to understand how long it takes to build an out-of-home plan. I can understand how long it takes to source with different vendors. So that goes into my mind as I'm planning maybe how we talk about a case study or use case. And so I think it all comes back to just having an appreciation for what other functions do and wanting to help champion that, because marketers, that their inherent skill set should be able to tell stories in a way that can communicate to different learning styles.
And has it changed a little bit since we have more remote and hybrid workers? Because, I mean, past before, everybody had to come into work. Now, some companies are requiring you to come back to work 5 days a week, like Amazon just announced this past week. They're like, y'all have to come back to work. But how has it changed with internal marketing if you don't have everybody in the office 5 days a week now?
Of remote and hybrid models, it's even more paramount that internal marketing's, and it's just executed and there's a structure to it. I think everyone in the company should be able to tell your elevator pitch. There should be consistency there, and it's just you may have to roll it out differently, but you also have to keep in mind some employees may have never met each other. You're working in different time zones. There's different styles and structures there. So being a part of helping understand what the expectations are and contributing that in the different learning styles that they have. For someone in remote, it may not be where you're just sending them a text document. Maybe you're recording a Loom video and sending that, because there's a little bit more asynchronous ability there, or it's just they're a visual learner. So I think just like marketing externally, you have to think about the executions you use, and you have to think about the different formats you use. So it's the same thing, I think, internally, especially, but it's probably even more important as not everyone's in the same office building or in the same location all the time. You have to reinforce that. You have to reiterate that message. And that's where I think different learning styles comes into play with that.
And how can internal marketing help ensure consistent messaging across both internal and external communications?
I think that's where a good example of that would be is not operating in a vacuum when you're launching a marketing campaign. Launching that internally first, because one, it's going to get everybody excited. Like, here's what we're doing. Here's all the executions we've built. Here's what this is going to look like. But you get other people to buy in. You get people's like excitement there. You're also not asking everybody to give their opinion, because making a decision as a group think can definitely prevent some progress there. I mean, there's some feedback you might get, but you take that in stride. It's like, hey, thanks, we appreciate that. Here's maybe the rationale of why we did it this way or why we're messaging this way. It helps you to educate on like the theory and the execution of what a marketing campaign looks like. But that's going to help sales, because they're going to see the use cases that you're using. They're going to see the emails that are going out, so they know how to respond to that. So it's important to keep people involved early on in the process. It gets them excited internally. And then when it goes out in the market, you can then report on that. You can give updates. But it's very important to keep everyone in the loop early on versus it being a surprise to other departments internally.
You're trying to do all this messaging to have like the different types of personality come in and help you figure out if this is the right messaging, because you could have different groups of people with different diverse thoughts and then they'll all disagree with each other, but at least like where all these diverse thoughts are going with this messaging. Because I mean, as marketers, we can create this message, we think it's awesome, and then all of a sudden we bring it out to the wild and it's like, well, that didn't work so well.
I mean, as we know, marketers, you're not going to bat 100 or 1,000% every time. Some campaigns are just not going to hit. I think there is a trap of asking for opinions from everybody. If they're not the intended audience, or they don't know enough about the intended audience, there's going to be a bias towards what they like. And, no offense, but somebody in accounting might not be your ICP. They might not be the person you're trying to talk to. So while they may have an opinion about that, they're not the intended audience. And so you have to take that into consideration. You also have to take into consideration ideas are going to come from everybody. You'd be silly not to take ideas from other places and other individuals that may not sit in the marketing team. However, you have to there's a balance there of too many cooks in the kitchen, or just too many ideas, versus we're going to go with this. This is our hypothesis. We've made a decision on this. Here's why. We're going to learn from it. But I've had great ideas coming from someone that's, no marketing degree whatsoever, but they had a really good idea, and you're like, oh, I could see that work. So that's important. And I think you want to champion that as well, to say, hey, look, this idea came from someone in the product team. We never thought of that, and look where this got us to. So I think that's one of those things you can help champion for other people to contribute, because they should feel like they should contribute. And nowadays, everyone has a voice. Everyone has social channels that they're active on. You shouldn't have the expectation of everybody wanting to share your news, but you can champion those that do want to, because they're going to extend the voice of who you're talking to, and it may start to reduce your overall marketing costs.
And what are some of the common mistakes companies make when implementing internal communication initiatives, and how should they avoid these?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think as long as it's not a one-way conversation, and as long as it's not, well, we told you that once, I think you have to continually communicate the same story over and over again. It's just like external. Nobody's going to make a buy unless you're selling T-shirts or something very transactional. Most people don't make a decision or a buy, or are in a buying position at that time when they hear your message the first time. You have to continually communicate that over and over again. And then when they're ready to execute on that, or when they're ready to understand that, they hopefully think of you. So I think a couple areas that are not probably going to be effective when you're trying to build an internal marketing communication program or plan is if you just say it once and then think everyone retains it. If you do it in one format, and you don't keep into consideration how other people learn or absorb information, I think that's a way that you can fail in that. And or just not be open to feedback. I think it's a marketer's job to listen and to digest and to disseminate information in a way that in different ways that people can understand. So if you are just, closing that idea down, it's like, no, we come up with the ideas here in the marketing world. You're going to fail, and you're going to turn people off too. I mean, like, everyone has good ideas. It doesn't mean it's always going to be the best idea for that execution, but you should be open to those types of things within reason.
So, I mean, what I'm hearing is even if you're maybe the boss of somebody, don't talk down to them, talk parallel to them or like equal to them. So your messaging should be equal, even if you're the boss, but still have that separation. Or if you're the same employee, just talk equal to them. Because when you talk down to people, people are like, well, I'm not going to do anything about this.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, that's just human nature in general. Like, you don't be a jerk. Like, I think keep in consideration that what sales is doing, it's difficult and it's important, and it's equally as important as what marketing is doing. We're here to help each other. So, sales team, here's why I think that our marketing team should sit on your calls. Here's why we should talk to your customers, because we're going to pick things up that you may not. You're going to hear something different than we're hearing it, and we're going to use it in a different way. Not, if I said that to a sales leader, like, hey, we're going to sit on your calls without context, that seems like a forced entry there. That seems confrontational. Hey, I really want to understand better how we can change up our landing page, and I want to use the words that our customers are using. So would it be okay if we listened to your gong call recordings, or if we could go out on some sales calls? Like, framing it in a way where it's, hey, I'm trying to help you out, and it's going to make all of our jobs easier. You just, I think it's as simple as just try not to be a jerk, and which is, how we should all live in life, I guess.
And in what ways can a company measure the effectiveness of their internal marketing strategies?
I think when you can see cohesion between teams, when you can do things like when you can think about, like, requests that come into marketing, and maybe, depending on how you kind of keep track of that or structure it, but I think there's some efficiencies of scale that could come with maybe not having so many rush requests, and maybe the education around a salesperson coming to a marketing team. I need a sell sheet, which happens probably very often. um, the first thing I would do is ask, well, what are you actually trying to accomplish? Like, do they specifically ask for a sell sheet, or do you need a reason to follow up, and they're just a tangible type of learner? Do we not have enough information on our site? What are we trying to get across to them? Because we may have another execution for you that's already built, or we may have a different way that you can deliver that's that's easier to be tracked than just handing someone a PDF. So there's a lot of ways to think about that, but I think if one of the ways that I've found in the past that there's been some efficiencies there is that the rush orders don't always come into marketing. There's an appreciation for, I understand how long things take, or I'm going to plan out ahead of time because I know how long things take, versus a mad scramble at the end. So those are some ways where I think, you're going to see a better relationship between sales and marketing. You're going to see maybe some bottom of funnel or middle of funnel closing better, because we're just getting better at executing on what the needs are versus working in silos. I think those are a couple ways that you can say, hey, this is working. We're all, whatever the analogy you want to use, rowing our oars in the same direction. Or I always butcher analogies like that, but you can pick whatever analogy you love the best, but that sort of teamwork model, you can see that working together. You can see proactive communication happening. Like, hey, we heard this from this prospect. They referenced that one campaign you ran. That's a good sign of that. People are working back and forth, and it's not just a one-way street.
And how does technology and digital communication play a role in facilitating internal marketing strategies? Like, do you guys use email marketing, maybe internal podcasts, private podcasts, videos? Like, what do you use specifically?
Yeah, I think it depends on the size and structure and of each company. I think email marketing is one way that there was a company I had worked for in the past. We actually had a daily email that we put out, and it was called What We Know Now. And the whole theory behind that was we had all these different departments. This is when we went remote. So everyone, this was sort of a new structure for everyone. And we try to communicate what we knew at that point about a lot of the changing landscape of things, of just what each different department was working on. And it was a great model because everyone was used to email communication. It was simple to put together. It took some time, but the ROI on that was incredible because people felt more connected. We also put some fun things into there too, so it wasn't just being hit over the head with business information all the time. There was some. You got to learn about your employees more, your coworkers, especially sitting in a remote environment. So it really depends. I mean, it's like, don't try to boil the ocean. Find what works for your organization. If it's email, if it's Slack, if it's, like I said, Loom videos at the end of the week, I've used those before just to kind of give people a heads up on what's going on. Find what works for you, but you don't have to. I wouldn't focus on the technology or building out a big structure. I'd focus on telling that story first. And if it resonates, great. And you can always expand upon it.
Successful, and then experiment on other things, maybe to enhance it if need be. But if not, don't try to like reinvent the wheel again.
Yeah, you don't need to buy a lot of technology. You're probably already using things in ways that people communicate. But just remember, everyone has different learning styles. Like some people might want the too long didn't read bullet version, and some people want the documentation. So think about the different styles that you're using with people. And that goes for external marketing too. Everyone's going to have a different learning style outside your company.
The success of internal marketing programs.
A good internal marketing program without leadership buy-in. I think everyone has to be on the same page that we're all working together. Sales and marketing are not enemies. They're working cohesively. They're working with customer support. Product now is, like a newer term for product marketing, but that function needs to be integrated with the different departments. They need to be able to understand what's coming down the line and be able to tell that to prospects and to customers. So there's retention there with current customers and customer support, but then there's prospecting with sales. So if that buy-in isn't there and there's not appreciation of like, why does this team need to be in this meeting and what are we trying to do, then it's going to fail.
Let's say some company you're trying to get the leadership to do buy-in. How do you convince them? Because sometimes it's like, well, why do I need to do this type of a thing? Because everybody has a long list of things to do or not do, or they think they're busy or they actually are busy. But how do you get that buy-in? Because sometimes it is a little difficult to be like, hey, look, we need you guys to do this because, I mean, you are the leadership and people look up to you for this.
I think you have to think about what's important to them. So a CFO or a finance person is going to care about they're going to care about budgets. They're going to care about ROI. They're going to care about probably more in an analytical way. And so if you can help them understand, listen, we're going to spend a lot of money or time on these marketing campaigns. If we operate in a silo, there's a good chance that we may not be as effective because we are not understanding the feedback from the customer feedback loop from sales. So if we can do this, but if we don't hear back from them, we're going to maybe use the wrong words and on our communications, and it's not going to resonate with our buyer and they're going to go somewhere else. So that's like, you have to think about what's important to them. The sales team may say like, well, we need to book, we want to book more meetings, not just awareness. Well, okay, that's great. Like, help us understand which prospects are not converting, and like give us enough of a sample size so that we can maybe make some deductions around, hey, we shouldn't maybe target this segment because we're learning that they're just not ready to buy yet, or this industry is at the wrong sales cycle. So let's focus on other ones. If we can help them understand what they're motivated about, and usually that's like selling more and getting a higher paycheck. Well, how do I help them do that? I'm going to help them find the right prospects, but I need some feedback from them first. I care about what motivates them. And so when they see that you're intrinsically motivated to help them out, then I think that there's a two-way street there. So I think you just have to, you can't say, well, here's why, because I'm telling you so. I think you have to put yourself in their shoes. And again, this goes back to like common sense marketing or just telling stories, but think about what they care about and how do you tell the story in a way that they're like, oh yeah, okay, then that makes sense.
And how can internal marketing help a company achieve its business goals and objectives in the long term?
I think we talked about a number of those things there. I think you're going to work faster. You're going to be on the same page with other teams, especially when it comes to go to market. So when sales, customer support, and marketing are all rowing in the same direction, you're going to execute faster. You're going to hopefully spend less to acquire new customers, and you're going to keep them because you're finding the right people. So I think, it's not easy and it doesn't happen overnight, but when everyone understands what we're trying to accomplish, when everyone understands the buy-in around what marketers are trying to do, you can hopefully get sales quicker and you can keep customers longer.
And I mean, for those companies that haven't really done internal communication very well, what is kind of like your rundown of like your two bullet thing about like why is it so important for them to start now?
I don't think you want any department working in a silo. I think, how often are they talking to each other and how often are they sharing ideas? It's important, and it shouldn't be a blame game. It shouldn't be sales did this. Well, no, marketing did this. We're all in it to learn together. So I think the sooner that everyone can buy into that idea of we don't need to spend every minute together. We don't need to have meetings every day, but we should be sharing back and forth of how we get better as a go-to-market group or function. It's gonna deliver dividends.
All right, people who listen to this podcast are wondering where can they find you online to learn more about what you do and how internal communication is so great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So, if you search for Charlie Riley on LinkedIn, happy to connect there, or check us out at onscreen.ai if you're interested in outdoor advertising. That's, where I'm focusing my time now. So, trying to help build some internal marketing and external marketing for our organization to do measurable out of home. But yeah, you can find me there, or like I said, I'm active on LinkedIn.
All right. Any final thoughts for our listeners?
No, thanks for having me. It's I think marketers are asked to do a lot. So the more that you can help get others on board internally, you're going to have more champions that get that aha moment of how you're helping them out. Just be a good listener. It's table stakes for marketers.
All right. Thank you, Charlie, for joining Digital Coffee Marketing Brew and sharing your knowledge on why internal marketing is just as important as external marketing.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for listening. As always, please subscribe to this podcast on all your favorite podcasting apps. Leave a 5-star review. It really does help with the rankings. Let me know how I am doing. Join me next week as I talk to another great thought leader in the PR marketing industry. All right, guys, stay safe. Get to understanding how you can make your internal marketing better. And see you next week. Later.